And ladies and gentlemen, we are live. It is November 2022. This is the Voice of Reason podcast. My name is Sean Phillips, and as always, I am brought to you alongside my two co-hosts, Mr. Andrew Van Beber and Travis Kirkendall. Gentlemen, how are we doing today?
I'm just so happy to see my handsome friend again from California, who was up there just looking, even though he's wearing a piece of toilet paper around his and I I am happy to see him again though. You know,
It is
oh,
good to
Yeah,
have him back for
it is
sure.
great to have him
Shows
back.
just you and me are a lot
Yeah,
of pressure on
I
us.
know there's
Sean
too
takes a
much.
lot of the pressure
Sean,
off.
Sean just he's the one who shoulders all the pressure for us and carries us like a piece of luggage at the airport. So I mean,
well, that's a good thing that I get a good deal on check backs. So that's why
that's
just
why
So
keep
we
what's
that's what
shuffling
tell
the
tell the
show.
people what's been going on, why you've been
Yes,
gone,
Sean,
and
tell
some
people
you have
what's
some
been
big
going on.
announcements to.
Yeah, so something kind of small happened over the last week. Just kidding. Rather big change. So I am officially engaged. I proposed to my better half,
Yeah, you
Tony,
did.
and she actually said yes. I don't want you guys to know how much it costs to get that answer out of her, because the when you buy the girlfriend package, getting the fiance package is like a
Yeah,
much different price.
the upgrade charges
Yeah,
are.
yeah, yeah. So but no, it was well worth it. We're both super excited, and just looking forward to continuing to kind of grind things out and get things done out here in California, and then maybe next year or early 2024 sometime. Have a big old shindig with our friends and family and
Yeah,
loved
we
ones
are.
back in Missouri to
Yeah, we are.
tie the knot. So we're excited.
Yeah, we are. That is awesome, awesome, awesome. And if you haven't, if you follow Sean, you gotta look at where they did it. You guys, that was sweet on the beach. I thought you said that was down in Malibu.
Yeah, it was great. We had some friends in town, some friends from Jefferson City that are thinking about moving out here, and they're great people. They were our friends Dustin and Denalia. They came out here for the week. Um, Dustin and I had talked about it. I had kind of planned things out with him, and yet we went to Malibu. There was a spot out there that we had went to, and it was beautiful. We kind of lucked out because it was a little bit chilly, but the wasn't too bad. The beach was completely empty aside from
Nice,
a
nice.
couple of people who were kind of scattered. They were away from us when everything kind of went down, and yeah, so it was really nice. It was. I couldn't have asked for a better time. It was funny too because like we hadn't told Dustin's wife Danelia about it, and so she was just as surprised. So in our video, my friend Dustin had taken a video of me proposing, and it's funny because originally his wife had been taking photos for us because we were doing like family photos, and she's an Android user and doesn't know that you can take photos while an iPhone's still locked. So she's freaking out, and you hear her in the video like it's locked,
I was
like
wondering what
freaking
all that
out.
noise was.
Yeah. It's funny. And then you just hear they have a son, Matthias, and then you just hear him chirping in, and Julian was busy digging sandcastles, so she didn't really know what was
She
going
didn't
on. And
care. It
yeah,
was
she didn't
good.
care. Like I already see you two boobs all the time, so I don't need to see you guys anymore. Now that you just have a ring on it. So
Oh
no, it was really
man.
good. It was a really good time. And then when Dustin and Danelia were here, Tony and I actually were able to sneak out and go on a date. That was the first time since July, June, to be completely honest, that Tony and I have been apart from Julian, and so those little luxuries are
When you have
it was
friends,
really
yeah,
special. Yeah, it was really
that's good.
nice,
That's
and
good.
yeah. So we're really excited. We had a great vacation, um, and now the already busy schedule gets even busier. Later this month, there's a lot of travel, a ton of different events. There's um, December gets busy, January and February just busy. All very good things, a bunch of really cool news to share later on. But yeah, just it's kind of interesting. I don't want to cut too much into the time, but it's exciting with all the work that we've kind of done to get here. The fruits of our labor are kind of starting to show, and that's cool. A lot of work, which is good. We knew that coming out here that it would be if it was easy, everyone would do it and it would happen overnight.
Right.
So
Right.
we're at that point where wheels are turning and
I'm
it, living it, and only a couple homeless people shit on the sidewalk every now and then. So it makes it all worth it.
Well, I'm when I saw you told us in our group chat, you're like, today's the day, boys, and we're like, oh, here we go. And I was, and then I was just like, okay, I'm not hearing anything. We're not hearing anything. We're not hearing anything. We're not hearing anything. And then I think I called Sean the next day, or I texted him the next day, and I was like, how'd it go, man? Oh, she said yes. I was like, okay, that's all I needed to know. Yeah, that's great though. That is fantastic that you guys. I'm glad to find that somebody's finally gonna try to tame you down and keep you locked into place.
Right? Yeah. No, I'm excited because we'll just have to prepare because come the wedding time, it's going to be a greasy horror show. So I'm excited for you guys to see the party. We're going to have
Oh,
plenty of liquor, booze,
yes,
and
and
lots of
yep, and
explicit rap. So it's going to be a good time.
How are you? Just curious. I know it's probably super early. How are you guys planning on doing it? Are you guys going to do it out there? Are you going to do like a small kind of thing and have a big reception? Like, what are you kind of
We're gonna
thinking?
do we're not gonna do it out here just because we have so much more friends and family out in Missouri, so it just makes more sense to do it back home
right.
to have the biggest shindig possible. So we're trying to have a good ass time. So we've between the two of us, we've got a ton of friends and family and loved ones from all over. Um, so we're just gonna find a big old venue and just
Overlook?
I wish if I could pull $50,000 out of my ass, it would definitely be there. But unfortunately, my ass
Oh,
ain't that deep, so I ain't going out and try
not from what I've heard. I mean,
it. Well,
Ooh,
I couldn't
if there's
pass
fifty
that.
thousand worth of Bitcoin in there, maybe that's not a good thing.
there you
So
go.
that's awesome. That is so awesome. I'm glad to hear that. We had a great topic last week, Sean. I wish you would have been on with us. I was doing some looking on that. We've gotten actually quite a few views on that and quite a few comments on that. So
And to put it into perspective of why um, that didn't work out, and I
no,
can't
no,
give much away, but um, television shows have been happening. So
yeah,
it's been cool.
and
It's been cool some of the work that I've gotten to do.
that's great too that you're getting that because you have other news which you're going to share as it develops. But you've got I couldn't be more proud of you and you chasing your dream and getting out there, and you're one of those people who here's my dream, I'm going to do it, and then you have the balls to go out and do it, and then you're chasing it and you're killing it. And I know Travis and I are very proud of you. And it's like you were saying in the group, I'm sorry I was like been absent. I was like, dude, you do not have, and I'll say it for our viewers and I'll say it for Travis, you do not have to apologize for anything because we are so proud of you and
Amen.
the job that you're doing. And we just like to be along for the ride just to see it. So I mean, just to be for us to be able to say, man, I know the famous Sean Phillips one day, so I just want to be.
You won't have to tell them that you know them. They'll be like, we know you know them because we see you with them at least once a week.
Um, so Travis, and we were glad to see that. Well, Travis, there's the wife back there too. But this weekend was definitely a whirlwind for us. We're getting ready Tomorrow's going to be an interesting day for us at school. In light of the recent shootings and stuff down in St. Louis, our administrators we're going to be doing our ALICE training tomorrow, which is something that is, I think every school needs to go through and do and everything. And we're going to be doing our active shooter drills and all that stuff. And it's terrible that people think it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when anymore. But I'm not looking forward to that professional development day tomorrow. But so yeah, that's what's going to be happening for us tomorrow. That's my week, and then we're actually at the end of this week, Sean. We're doing our youth in government is going to be happening. YMCA does a program called Youth in Government, and we get to take we're actually taking a small group this year because this is kind of our first. Last year I had COVID. A year ago today I got COVID, and so I was out. And no, we're looking forward to. I'm looking forward to going to YAG, and it's a good time for all. So
It legit is one of the best programs ever. Travis, you didn't do it back in high school, did you? You would have loved it. I think that if it wouldn't have been so new and it would have been established and you would have like known what it was, you would have been all about it because youth and government was seriously. Well, I only went
you went
twice.
twice.
I went twice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was seriously one of the coolest weekends. Getting to like debate on the House floor,
And then
and
the
in the
Senate.
Senate and get to do those things. It was really really cool.
Yep, it was. And by the way, speaking of handsome men, look at Travis. We've bypassed the fact that you've got the haircut, you're shaved. You said you didn't want to look like a homeless man anymore.
I was getting pretty rough.
So turn your volume up a little bit there too, Sean or Travis. You might want to turn your volume up just a wee bit. But no, so the topic, as stated by our tagline tonight, is the midterms. Um, Boys, let's just talk from the onset. How many? I don't know if I should say by a show of hands. How many feel that this is going to be, as President Joe Biden said, a road leading to chaos? I mean, do you guys? What kind of feeling? What kind of feeling are you getting going into this election with all the? We were talking before we went on about all the stuff that the extreme right is saying, your ultra conservatives are saying about what they're going to do, and all this other crap. What are your guys' thoughts, feelings as to what are you predicting we're going to see on Tuesday?
First off, can you hear me okay?
You're still a little soft, but I can pump you up so the folks at home can hear you.
Okay, maybe Sean go first. I don't know what's going on.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm hoping for Missouri legalize marijuana.
Yeah.
But no, I this election cycle's kind of been interesting because I don't know how it is in Missouri right now because I had kind of left around the time where those the advertisements and stuff really really get ramped up. What I've noticed, what's been different about California knows their audience. They know they're a blue state. That's not going to change. You have your parts of California, like counties that might be more red. Like you have Orange County, which is typically a more red district. The thing is, though, out here, what I've noticed compared to back in places like Missouri, or the Midwest, where I would almost consider them battleground, where 1 year you might get a Republican as your governor, and then there's years where there's a Democrat that's a governor. Out here, it's pretty straightforward where the needle's going to be. So the thing that we see out here are the issues, quote unquote. I've actually never seen this many political advertisements for actual laws and different things. Like the big one that I see nonstop out here is sports gambling. So
They don't have sports gambling out there?
no, not yet. But what the propositions that keep getting promoted for are, yes, we're going to legalize sports gambling, but who exactly is the money going to go to? And then, of course, there's the one coalition that's like moms against sports gambling because they're talking about how their 13-year-olds are going to be able to, get on FanDuel and DraftKings and all that crap. So um, out here, it's not as heated. Now, when it comes to, we're in a very interesting time because was it Liz Cheney who now, if I'm not mistaken, is a Republican who's endorsing the Democratic the
Yeah.
Democratic nominee in her state,
Yes.
like
And
taking a lot of
yep.
flack from her party. So it's getting to the point where we are really starting to see, and we've talked about this. We've talked about this throughout the cycle of this podcast over the last couple of years, ever since we had the switch from Trump to Biden. But we're really starting to see where a lot of people are coming out of the woodworks speaking against those Trumpian politics. I think Dan Crenshaw made the news recently because he was kind of came out that like everyone that started talking shit about how the election was rigged knew it was fake. They just wanted to show face, and I really think it's going to get kind of messy. When I say that, I mean there's going to be, I don't even want to know how many states you're going to see. It's fraud. It's fraud. If there's some things that are swung, because that's all it is nowadays. At least in my opinion, I think we're going to hear a lot of that from your really loud mouth red individuals that are running this year.
Go ahead, Travis. What's your thoughts?
Overall thoughts. First off, we're talking House and Senate. The quote unquote red wave, can see it. I think the Republicans take the House. The Senate's a little bit closer, but I wouldn't be surprised if they take the Senate either. I mean, but to go into, the chaos that you talked about, there's two articles here that I was reading. One regarding threats that poll workers have been getting in Arizona. There's you were talking to me about the armed men
Mm-hmm.
showing up at ballot drop-off boxes and stuff like that, and a lot of intimidation and just a lot of uncalled for behavior. I personally, I believe in the system. I don't see fraud that a lot of people really do have faith. I don't think it's gonna be as chaotic as what it set out to be. I think there's a lot of fear mongering going on both sides of the political spectrum. I really think it's more just to get clicks and more just getting. But I mean, of course, there are these cases that we're talking about again. Back to the men, death threats. That I mean, here I'll read one. It's just ridiculous. It's completely uncalled. This was actually documented from death threats that the Arizona workers are. It was talking about like trying to find the actual quote, but it was something about like dragging these people in the back of a car and uh hanging them as a traitor. I mean, it's crazy stuff that's just completely uncalled for. A lot of these poll workers, man, it's not like they're just people doing their. I mean, they're getting paid, but from what I've seen, it's more of just doing something for your community, getting involved. Don't see it as someone going in there. So the whole chaos thing again, I think is just fear. To have faith in the system, go out and vote. Of course, Sean was talking about too. We're probably going to see fraud claims. I'm sure we're going to see it. The reaction to that, I don't know what the fallout's going to be. I don't know what the extent of the fraud, if there actually will be fraud. I mean, who knows? Again, I don't see it, but it's going to be interesting. But I think all things considered, everything's going to be fine, and majority.
As I look at this election, so of course, Joe Biden's statement on Friday about how he feels that if Republicans don't if the Republicans if the Republicans challenge as much as they say that they're going to challenge election outcomes, that this is going to be the path to chaos. And, I'm kind of like, well, we've pretty much been on the path to chaos for the last 2 years anyway. Heck, the last 6 years, if you want to really get exact on it. But I am truly concerned about what this Tuesday is going to look like. You know, if you look at, I was just looking at Politico's webpage. Politico right now says the Senate remains to be a toss-up. The House will likely be Republican. Governor out of the states that are running, they think that there will be more Democratic governors elected. And then when you start looking at some of these key Senate races, they said Democratic Senator Mark Kelly has opened a lead. That's in Arizona. That's Liz Cheney's district, and so she's given, like you said, she's given her endorsement to Mark Kelly. The Georgia Senate race is pretty much that's Raphael Warnock and Herschel Walker, which I still can't believe that race is neck and neck. When you have listened to even a quarter of the ignorant crap that Herschel Walker is saying, the stuff that is coming out of his mouth. I mean, he is. If this guy gets into the Senate, God help us, because the overall IQ of the Senate will drop by at least 40 points. He straight up ignorant. The Nevada Senate race, Catherine Cortez and this Alex Lazalt. Again, Nevada's usually been a blue state, and it's a 50-50. We the famous Pennsylvania debate of Oz versus Fetterman. John Fetterman, who is you've got a guy who's been a stroke victim, and if you watched any of the debate last week, that was a disaster in the making, because you feel for Fetterman, because if you know anybody who's had a stroke, and my sister-in-law she's had like 3 or 4, what do they call those, TIA strokes, and she's had 2 major strokes. Okay. Her hands are always shaky. She can get confused. And John Fetterman, just during that whole election, just looked like he was trying to find his place. But what I thought was, I don't know if you guys heard this or not, on Saturday, Oprah Winfrey, who created Dr. Oz, pretty much, gave him his show. She endorsed Fetterman, which I thought was very good job, Oprah. The other key election states that they said was Wisconsin. This guy, the Republican Ron Johnson, who's running for re-election. They say that's 50-50. The New Hampshire Senate is 50-50. And so, I mean, there's 6 of those states that they think that it's going to be, what's going to be bad about this race, though, is this, fellas. From what they're saying right now, this has been one of the largest mail-in ballot years in history, because of the amount of people who are doing mail-in ballots. And I haven't really been able to get any feel on why that is. I mean, are people afraid to go and vote, or what do you guys see that as?
I think it's I'll be honest. I did something I did, and it's something I was talking with a coworker about. It's your Illinois allows you to do. The reason I like it, and the liked it too, and I think perhaps it's a reason a lot of voters can't. It obviously you get the list early. You have the list of who's running. Right? You go to a poll office, you go vote the day of election. Fortunately, you have a lot of voters that go in there and see these names. Who's this guy? Oh, he's Republican. Check the box. But the mail-in ballot, what I like is okay. Now you have a list of these. Get on my Google machine, right? Start research. Who is this person? What's their platform? What do they stand for? What are their policies, background, etc.? It allows voters to actually have time to research, actually know who is doing it. That was the reason I really liked it. Helped me a lot this season. That could be a reason for it. Why it could be popular.
Yeah, I think it's
Convenient.
that was going to be the one thing I was going to say is I think that because of the amount of mail-in ballots that we had during COVID, people kind of realized like, why do we need to actually go in and do this? Why can't we just streamline this way and word of mouth? And I think also too is because I have a feeling that for a lot of places where they
Uh-oh. I think we might have lost him there. He'll come back in a second, I'm sure. One of the things that I saw that can you hear me all right, Travis?
I can hear you.
Okay. One of the things that I when I look at this election, one of the things that I really get worried about with these mail-in ballots, and our friend Colby Coleman just said, that some people are afraid of, again, is ballot fraud. You know, that people are going. There's going to be fraud. There's going to be all this other stuff. But I'm like you, and I. Well, there we lost. Sean got off. He'll get back on here in a second.
Can I interject really quick?
Sure.
The fraud thing. I will say I was a little skeptical at first as well, but I had an incident when I first, obviously when I first got my Illinois President Illinois, I registered there. When I got the letter to hey you can do the mail-in ballot and I submitted it, it actually got rejected because they said my signature did not match my original voting record. I actually had to go in to McHenry County, the office there, and I had to verify my signature to make sure it wasn't fraudulent. So when I saw that and I had to go through that, it gave me hope. It gave me like, okay, they're actually taking this serious. That was just my experience. I don't know, other states could be different, but it seemed to me like Illinois is taking it pretty serious.
Well, yeah, and one of the things that I look at, and people don't want to believe that they're, and you and I had this discussion last week, that people still, we're looking at the boogeyman, we're looking at a whole, Sean just says internet went out. But one of the things that I think people are really afraid of, is that whole voter fraud. And so I was watching, and I'll put this on I'll put this on our Facebook site here in a minute. But Travis posted to our group page a interview. I don't know when. Do you know when that interview with Gavin Newsom was done? Was that this
4 days ago, I believe.
Okay, and so this interview by Gavin Newsom, who's the governor of California, one of the things that he was saying was, and his quote, not mine. He said he's scared as hell of. He said the Republicans are crushing the Democrats when it comes to getting their message out. Because one of the things that they're doing is that they're pushing. He said they're pushing Kevin McCarthy, who's the House Minority Leader. They said that they're continuing to push this, even though their lives were threatened on January the 6th. Now, once they've gotten their head gathered and they're all back together in the same powwow and everything, they're really pushing this whole thing about the big lie about how the election was stolen, how and people are still, so now everybody's going to be watching the election, and if our party doesn't win, well, there's got to be fraud. There's
Well, that
got to be.
ties into what the Clinton interview was when he was saying, Republicans have always closed strong, and the reason they close strong is because they do what Gavin Newsom was claiming about how they push their narrative and they make it they put a little bit an aspect of, I'll just say it, there's fear mongering involved, and that's been a big tactic of both parties. Really, I'm not going to defend Democrats; they've done it too, but I think that's a big part of what Newsom was talking about there.
Well, and when you look at some of these, when I look at some, here comes Sean. We're getting him back in now. Let's let him back in here.
So it must be those damn power outages.
It's a
It's a
brownout.
California thing.
It's a brownout. There, we got him back.
The Santa Anta winds knocked me out. Sorry, fellas.
The Santa Ana winds. Well, but what we were just talking about, Sean, is the whole thing that people are and the Gavin Newsom interview, and he said that the Republicans play on fear mongering. I want to get back to those days, though. Instead of you telling me what's wrong with the other party, like you said in our group chat earlier this week, I think it was you, Travis, who said, get back to just telling me how you're going to solve the problem. Stop telling me what's wrong with the other party. What'd you say?
There's been none of that. It's been like, for example, Ken Crenshaw, and he's guilty of this too. He made this post talking about how a lot of these Democratic high crime cities are Democrat. Okay, fair point. But in his posting, there was no like, okay, so what is the Republican solution to these problems then? Of course, it's every city's a little bit different, but at the same time, like I've seen, even on the larger scale, not just the cities, I have seen no solution. I've seen no solutions address the problems. It's just been, our country's going to hell. We got to vote for this party. They're ruining the country. They're gonna claim it's. You know what I mean? It's just been so much finger pointing. It hasn't been what I think America wants and what America needs solutions. As a voter, I would like to know, okay, solution to these.
Well, and there's so many issues that we're leaving untouched. Our friend Colby Coleman says, what about bail reform? I mean, we're not talking about, this issue of immigration. Let's just immigration for one thing. What the Republican agenda, if you've watched any of Fox News this week, Fox News has been reporting on the large influx, and we've seen a large number in the last 2 weeks of immigrants coming across the border. And the Republicans are, they know the writing's on the wall, and we're going to shut down these illegals, and okay, there's an issue. Let's talk about, and Sean, I'm sure a big issue in California that nobody wants to talk about, that should be talked about, is your homelessness problem.
That's the big driving that's the big hot topic for when I
What about
saying earlier of like all the political ads of what money is going to go towards and stuff. It's all homeless.
what about fentanyl? I
Yeah.
think it's one of the things both parties have like just avoided like the plague, like truly address.
Well,
It's things like that.
we've heard this term 1,000 times. The opioid crisis. It is a literal crisis. Nobody's addressing this that while they're busy fighting each other, we're killing each other in the. I mean, for those who don't know, the city of Louisiana, our lovely chief of police was arrested last week because he was taking evidence. It was fentanyl, it was meth, and our own chief of police is taking evidence from the evidence room and then taking it back to his place and selling it. Okay, we're not where law enforcement is losing the battle against opioids right now. And we're not taught, well, it's like it's the drug problem. We're not going to, and all of these issues, I mean, to me, call me a naysayer, call me negative Nancy, whatever. But all this infighting is going on. We're talking about January the 6th. We're talking about all this stuff, and we have forgotten to address the issues. Look at the number. I was shocked when I caught a number the other day um, on vets with PTSD. The number of vets with PTSD and the number of suicides are on the rise. And we're not doing anything about it. We're not doing anything about the homeless. We're not doing anything about opioids. We're not doing anything about, oh, yeah, now Roe v. Wade's overturned. We can go on to something else now. Okay. Now these states need to look at reforms on, okay, you can't just do a blanket statement. And I'm very pro-life. I am very pro-life. But you've got to talk about, you can't just blanket say no abortions whatsoever, because then you have the issue of women who miscarry, you have rape, you have incest, you have the health of the mother. Okay, so here are issues that we need to look at and aren't getting looked at because we're too busy having a pissing contest with the other side on who can pee the farthest.
No, there's got to be polarizing.
Well, I mean, so what's the future? What's our future of politics going to be?
I will say, Grant, I'm optimistic, overly optimistic of like how this election's. I really do think how this election's handled regarding, the chaos and things that people are saying is going to happen. I think this is really going to foreshadow how 2024 is going to be. I think seeing how 2022 is going to go is going to give you a pretty good idea how 2024 is going to go. As far as the future of politics, I don't know. We're going in the direction that is, there's no, I know we talk about this all the time, and I feel like sometimes we just repeat ourselves over and over again, but this is the stuff that needs to keep getting addressed, is there is no open discussions and debating and no problem solving anymore, and that's what we need. We need that. We need to address these issues and actually, instead of pointing fingers, come together and develop solutions. And it seems like our politicians just don't want to do that. And I think, we've said it before, things like social media and all those things have made it worse. I don't know if that gets better, other than I think if we get new people in office, obviously that would be a game changer. But I think a lot would need to happen for us to start going in the right direction. I think there would have to be some major changes in the people in government. And that's on us, the voters.
I'm 100% on Travis's side. I do think that there's a couple of interesting things that we need to talk about, like as society as a whole. When we talk about in like recent times where it's these celebrities that are becoming politicians, right? That's not necessarily new. And I think that a lot of people kind of like thought it was extremely new when like Donald Trump came into office, because he was kind of one of the most prolific huge celebrity to kind of fall in. But like people forget about Reagan, like Schwarzenegger, like these are things that have kind of occurred over and over again. And now, there's these, the talks about Dwayne Johnson running for president, in 10, 20 years. The thing is, like,
he's getting in politics too, right?
He is. There's a lot of again, Dr. Oz. We just talked about it. Dr. Oz is getting into politics. Herschel Walker getting into politics. As a society is changing, and we've known this. And society has always changed. We're getting to a really interesting point now where how our young people are absorbing content. Right? They're not watching traditional television. We know that, right? They're getting their content, they're getting their information from things like TikTok and YouTube, right? Those are the two main source of how they're getting their information. So when we think of these younger individuals when they turn 18 and they start to get into voting, right? Um, it makes sense why we're seeing so much craziness, in my opinion, of what we see, the content splicing. And I think, unfortunately, for politics, the way that politics are promoted, it's going to only get worse. If you look, I mean, just think about it, right? When V, you might have a better answer for this as a historian. So the ideology of trolling is not new. What I mean by that, go back, look at like political cartoonists, right? Like back in the day when they would make these obscure and it was like these ridiculous political cartoons. Well, now everyone has the ability to do that and to post it and to share it daily and repeatedly over and over again. So I think that politics are the same. It's how we are absorbing them, and how it's promoted is so vastly different while not changing in the same sense. And because of that, um, I don't know. It's just I
Politics
I
is so media.
yeah. It's
It's
and
it's about
now
clicks. It's about engagement. It's so
it,
much about the message.
precisely, and because of like back in the day, I look at it when you actually, like, as silly as it sounds, when you got a newspaper, right? When newspapers were like a thing, and this might sound stereotypical, but think of like your 1950s, 1960s dad busting out the newspaper, sitting down, eating breakfast, cup of coffee, right? While, kids are getting ready for school, right? When you look at that, that's a moment where at least you're not scrolling through looking at endless 50 videos in a 10-minute span. You're stuck reading on one thing, right? So you're really absorbing that content, which is why, in my opinion, when you have the older generation that is so staunch on beliefs, people kind of forget, like, well, they're it's not just being old, it's being ignorant. But I'm like, you got to think the way that they had taken things in was ingrained. It was long. People nowadays, their opinion might change every 5 seconds because they're changing the whatever they're viewing, whatever
Con-
they're engaging with.
right, and being constantly bombarded by, like you said, where people get their information from, it is very it's very subjective. I mean, there's so much that can be spun on, and what can be put out there. And what's bad about this, and you made a great point there, Sean. People could go and read the newspaper, and they could read about but even then, there would be you had to worry about who was backing what newspaper. When you look back in the late 1800s, you had Joseph Pulitzer versus William Randolph Hearst, two of the biggest newspaper publishers in the country. And it was well known that Pulitzer was a Democrat and William Randolph Hearst was a Republican. And these guys, they put so much slant into their news. And one election, and you mentioned that this has been going on for years, but we don't really talk about how elections of the past. And I just pulled up one election that always comes up to my head, and it's not a well-known election, but it was 1884 election, and it was two Grover Cleveland and this guy James G. Blaine, and they're running on a bunch of it was about the tariff and it was about all this other stuff, but there was this there was rumors that Blaine had this illicit affair and he had a little illegitimate child, and then everybody would come up with the Blaine Oh God, I gotta find it. Blaine, James B. Blaine, the Continental Liar from the state of Maine, and then then they would call the Democrats, and then Blaine would call the Democrats the party of Romanism, and rebellion, and it was just the mudslinging was as thick back then, but people's ideas were shaped by what politicians truly said about what they were going to do. Yeah, there was mudslinging going on, but they addressed. I want to go back to that thing of saying they addressed issues. Okay, they addressed issues and they said what they were going to do. They told us, okay, here's what I want to see happen. I want to, we're going to, they actually had names for their platforms even. We have names for our platforms today. Trump has MAGA and Joe had Build Back Better and all this other stuff. But, I truly think that the population, and I told my kids this the other day. I told my students this the other day, that this is probably the most uneducated that I have been about an election in my voting history. I'm 48 years old. So I've been voting roughly 30 years. Okay, I voted, and I usually try to do a good job about being educated about who I'm voting for. And Travis, I was going to mention this earlier. There is a website out there, and like I said, I've kind of been doing things back and forth here today. My wife found this one. It's called ballotready.org. Okay, it's every candidate and every referendum explained. And what you do is you plug in your zip code, you plug in your street address, and what it does is it will bring up all your candidates. Okay, I want to know about this candidate. I want to know about this person, this person, this person, and they will send you, and they'll download it in a format and they'll send it to you. Here's what this guy stands for. Blam 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 blam. And it's actually fairly easy to use. I used it earlier
I'm
today.
looking at this now. This is really cool.
Yeah. So there is, but it's called ballotready.org, and it is, it says, it even tells you, it can tell you where you need to go to vote. It can tell you, looking to inform and engage members, supporters, and voters. Okay, here's, see your ballot, rally your friends, make a plan, vote. And these are the educational tools instead of, and there's actually a couple of different sites that you can go to.
I remember, I'm bummed out because I can't remember the name of it. And there used to be like this thing. I couldn't tell you the name of the site, but it would be like, it was like a quiz, and it would ask you like 25 of like the hot bucket, questions or whatever, and then it would kind of tell you where you paired along with, and then if you
who you matched up with.
And then like if you really wanted to get into it, there was like another quiz you could do that was like a bunch of even smaller issues. It was really cool. I don't even remember what it was, but I remember there was a couple times I did it and was like
we did that in
kind of surprised. I was like, oh wow. I didn't know how I felt.
Now that you remind me that, I need to do that in my class this week, because we would do that and kids would be surprised on where they're at.
I love Trump. My daddy loves him. My mama loves him. My sister loves him. We love Trump. And my morals align with Joe Byron, but it's still just bump Trump. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But no, I'm putting this up, so I'm going to put this website on our.
Yeah, do it.
So, people, I think that's part of the process is actually being educated. And there's another site. I just found this other site that I used today too. It's called ballotpedia.org, which you go to this and it'll actually bring up, it'll show you the whole ballot of what your ballot's going to actually look like. So now if you go to our Facebook page, you can go to this. You can see ballotready.org, ballotpedia.org. go to these sites. And one of the things that I am so for educating voters, and knowing, like you said, Sean, there's people who just, I asked kids this today or on Friday, and one of the things that, if you really want to baffle a hardcore Republican or a hardcore Democrat, and if you want to see if they are truly educated, ask them this simple question. And it's the simplest question in the world. Why do you believe in what you believe? If you ask somebody why you believe in what you believe, it would totally, I think it would totally throttle a lot of people, because they can't honestly give you an answer. What they're going to do is they're going to go to the quote unquote talking points. If you're a surface level Republican, what are they going to talk about? They're going to talk about the border. They're going to talk about, oh, Joe, he's just senile and blah, 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 and how they stole the election. Okay? That's going to be your top three. Your surface level Democrats, what are they going to talk about? Well, Trump was in cahoots with Russia, and Trump was, it's going to be Trump, 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 Trump. But if you find a hardcore Republican or a hardcore Democrat, they're going to be able to get beyond the surface level fluff, and they're going to tell you, hey, let's look at the economy. Let's look at the job market. Let's look at where we are. Let's talk about inflation. Let's talk about, and get beyond the fluff, and let's start looking deeper. And again, sending emails to these guys, talking to these guys and saying, what's your plan? Because I have yet to hear somebody answer a question anywhere about what is your plan? What are you prepared to do? So, but if you look at and one of the other things I wanted to look at, and we have 3 different states represented here, is our governor elections. Okay, you two guys have. So Illinois has J.B. Pritzker versus Darren Bailey, and I watched the debate. I watched part of the debate, and it's been close to a month ago. But lo and behold, J.B. Pritzker is silently, quietly building up momentum. A lot of people think that he's going to be he might be a Democratic, a viable Democratic challenger to Joe in 2024. He's got, well, and we were, Travis and we were talking about this before we came on. The amount of money that JB has put into this election is unreal. Because, so JB, you name every major union in Illinois, and JB has their, with the exception of the Federation of Police, he's got everybody from AFL-CIO. He's got he's got Teamster. He's got AFSCME, which is the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees. Which is one of the biggest organizations in Illinois. He's carrying a lot of the big 5 counties up there in northern Illinois. He carries those, and then he carries St. Clair County, which is East St. Louis, and the rest of the state is red. But the rest of the state also doesn't have any population to speak of. And then as Sean said earlier, how much? We're obviously your LA, your San Francisco, your San Diego. These are your blue counties. When you look at the electoral map, though, you guys do have a lot of red, just like Illinois does, but it's in the lesser populated areas.
Your rural areas are always typical.
Well, and
Yeah, and people like it's funny. Like people always get shocked by that. Like it, it's always like one of the topic for debates is when people like talk about the city. Like I wouldn't. That was one of the things when I moved to LA and Travis. I'm sure you heard the same thing about when you lived in Chicago. Was just like, well, I couldn't live around one of them places where if they were to restrict my guns, well, I couldn't quite do like I was talking to my friend Dustin. The people that we work with and that we know before he came out here, they were literally just asking him like, "Well, is it really as bad? Is it as bad as they say? Like you can't go there. You can't walk outside without getting stabbed. You can't do anything without seeing someone taking a shit on the floor." And I'm just it was funny like when they were here, they were like, all the stuff that we thought that we were going to see, we didn't see any of it. There's parts of the city that deals with those things. There are parts of it, but the idea that it's this like it was funny. I have a good friend that Travis, you and I went to high school with that I see them post things all the time on their Instagram story about Los Angeles and what the people of Los Angeles, the people of California are experiencing. No, we're not. None of it. And it's all coming from sources that are from Missouri, that are from these other places. It's like they shared there were two things in particular. One was how they were talking about how there was a grocery store food shortage that was running rampant and people were breaking in and stealing food from places in Los Angeles. I tried to find a news article about it happening at all that day, that week. Couldn't find anything. I asked people around. I was like, hey, did you hear anything about this? They're like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And then the one of the other things that made me laugh was when California announced that they are going to in 2035, okay, so in over 10 years from now, when they announced that you in 2035 new cars being sold in the state of California will have to be electric vehicles. Okay, in 2035, can't sell gas vehicles brand new. You can still buy used cars. Okay, so that week that was announced, there was a heat wave in California, and so according to some people that I know elsewhere, my power was out. I was dealing with rolling blackouts. It was the be end all because they announced that electric vehicles were going to be the thing. Didn't have a blackout. No one in the city of LA or this LA proper had blackouts, but people, I was getting texts, messages like, "Hey, is everything okay? I heard, I saw online today that you guys were without power and it's 130 degrees out there." I was like, "No, it didn't happen." So those are just the kind of fabrications that now that I live here in Travis, I'm sure you deal with some of the same exact kind of things. Once you're there, it's like it's the be end all. But that kind of stuff makes
It's
me
a
laugh.
wild place, man.
well, I the the we've said this a lot, but the misinformation I think is just so unreal. I watched a clip on our on Channel 4, which is KMOV out of St. Louis, and they did this series on the two major candidates running ads on each other, and they fact checked every part of the ad, and it was just like this one part of the ad where they said the Democratic candidate for Senate for the U.S. Senate said that she wanted to defund the police, and and it was from an article in USA Today. Well, then you go back and you research the article in USA Today, and it was totally taken out of context. And they actually then they went back to when they had talked to this woman. The Senate candidate was actually at KMOV like back in January or whatever when the fund the police thing was going on, and she said, "No, I believe that we need to fund the police. We need to provide more education for the police. We need to get their salaries raised. We need to, you know." And there's so much. I mean, you can take something, and it's amazing how you can take a little piece of information. And if I take, I've got this big sentence, but if I take this part of the sentence and I take it and I twist it, you can make just misinformation out of anything, but they get people to believe it because when you watch these commercials, it'll have a little quote of what, from USA Today, such and such date, and they make you feel like, oh, well, they've gotten their information, and there's so much twisting of the truth. And if you find that one sound bite and you can play that sound bite over and over and over again, and the frequency of what they are playing, these political ads are designed to piss you off, and there's like, hell with it, I'm just going to vote for that guy.
Do you guys remember the conundrum a couple of weeks ago? It was a press conference or not a press conference, a rally that Joe Biden was speaking, and he was in a pretty like pro cop town, and mentioned like I never said to fund the police. If anything, we should fund the police more. And Joe Biden went into talking about where they like needed to allocate funds for funding the police. And it was funny because I just remember like Democratic Twitter was in this frenzy of uh, oh shit, the God just said we have to fund the police, but we've been saying for the last so long, and it was one of the funniest things, because again we've talked about it, like, and V, you were just going on about it. Like, there's so much stuff that like people will take a soundbite and they'll run with it, and it's like, I heard this, and this is the trajectory that it goes on. And again, Travis, like you mentioned, that's just where we're at today. Like that is kind of what politics has evolved into. Is you know everybody eats everybody. Like it's we all know people screw up. Like out here in LA, we're one of the big things we're dealing with. I don't know if you guys hear about it, if it's even news out where you guys are, where the LA City Council is like in a hellfire storm right now because this very progressive Hispanic woman was elected to be the head of the Los Angeles City Council, and then they got an audio bit of her calling a now the quote was, again, she was speaking in Spanish. So this is where the debate is. People are saying no, she didn't call the person that as a name. She was just referring to like just generalizing. Where the specific incident was in Spanish, she called a little boy a monkey, and the little boy was a black little boy. And so that is the debate that the LA City Council and all these people are having, is because what she said, she's like, no, I just referred to him like he was like being a monkey, he was going crazy, and she said some other stuff too which didn't help her case. But like, that is the kind of thing, you those all that comes in, and that's where they base everything off of. It's been interesting. There's been a lot of protest at LA City Council, rightfully so, like during all of this, and it's a bunch of them. But again, that's the thing, is this woman being elected, she Hispanic, very progressive, like very 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 progressive. And what she, what I'm saying, like, it's just, yeah, it's very.
You, I guess the main thing that you need to say, and for our hopefully for our listeners, we have a busy week, and it's kind of why we're doing this on Sunday night. But I think another reason is that if we can get this, I think the main message that we want to get, you've got 2 days, you've got a day, you've got a little bit over a day. Folks, you need to get out and you need to educate yourself. Don't go into the polling place and say, well, I'm going to mark R or I'm going to mark D. I didn't mention last week's poll because it wasn't relevant to last week's discussion, but I will mention this week's poll. And basically I said, who do you, let me get the exact question here. Our exact question was groups. You think I'd be better prepared, fellas? I'm sorry. It said, who do you feel will gain control over Congress in the next election? And out of our voters, we, again, good voter turnout here. I said Republicans, Democrats, Republican House, Democrat Senate, Democratic House, Republican Senate, and then I just said, I don't care, they're all crooks anyway, just as a laugh. 33% said Republicans. Nobody said Democrats. So out of our voters this week, nobody believed that the Democrats are going to win straight out. 45% said Republican House, Democratic Senate, and then 22% said I don't care, they're all crooks anyway. So thank you for your honesty there, our voting public there. That is, and I'm always happy to see when we have a good turnout on our group page. So, but really educate. I think that it's important. An educated voter is a dangerous voter. I watched one of my top 5 favorite comics. And I think Sean has liked some of George Carlin. So George Carlin's been dead for what, 10, 12 years now, probably longer than that. But George Carlin, somebody posted it was a Facebook reel or something. I wish I would have shared it, but I didn't want to because it was George Carlin being George Carlin. And what he said was, you and I are not a part of the club. You and I, the people who are being elected are being chosen by the big media, the big money, and you and I are not in that club. And part of the reason, and they want you to be a stupid, and he used all of his explicatives, but they want you to be this biggest group of stupid mother that you can possibly be. And George was right. And I'm sure that clip is well before Donald Trump. It was probably well before Barack Obama. And, how true that is. How true that is that, and I've told students this, what government wants is a uneducated populace. The more the more uneducated you are, the less likely you are to care about and know what's going on. Well, they're just going to do what they're going to do anyway. Folks, go out and get educated. Take a look at what is being said. Take a look at the issues. And one other thing, don't be afraid to call your congressman. Don't be afraid to email them. Yes, you may get a random generated response, but you start flooding their boxes. You get people. It starts at a grassroots level. It takes people to do this and to get involved and do more than just send death threats. I know the election was rigged, but we've got to start talking and really getting people to be educated, to be active in their society, and stop being wallflowers.
Get out, vote. I'll just say, you're going into the polls. I'm just gonna party because I always have. I would rather you. I don't care as long as you did whether on political spectrum, but I trust you made an educated decision. I would
Seriously,
educate yourself. Otherwise,
yeah.
don't even vote.
I'm with you 100%, Travis. Vote with a purpose. Vote with a purpose. Vote educated. Just because to vote for the sticker to say you did it.
That's why we're where we're at.
Mm-hmm.
Part of it.
Mm-hmm. Seriously, 100%. Like, and I don't. Never mind. Well, we can get in this other bag of worms I'm going to open later. But seriously, yeah, vote with a purpose. Have a reason. Yeah, but no, I'm with you. I'm so happy to be back. I'm glad this worked out. But yeah, no, seriously. Again, you guys have 2 days. Please check out had it written down here. Ballotready.org. Please check it out and just do
Ballotpedia.
some research.
Indeed.
Ballotpedia.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
The links
And
are
you
on our
can even
website.
just Google political quiz,
Yep.
and see if there's something, for you. And, don't just roll with the crowd. Like, find what's best for you. You'd be surprised. Yeah, no, it's great talking with you guys. To our listeners, thank you all so much for giving us a listen. Again, be a friend, tell a friend. We will announce here shortly. We've got a couple things that are new that we're still kind of working the kinks out of on our end. That helps us make some cheddar to continue to build this. So as we kind of get more familiar with those platforms and how we can actually make some money from the listeners, the biggest thing you guys can do to help us is to continue to watch, continue to listen, continue to share. And again, we will give you more information as to, for some of you guys that listen to us on Facebook, which we love, which we appreciate. We might ask you to, while you're at work, if you're not doing anything, just press play on Spotify, just and kind of let us, babble on mute, whatever it might be, because it could benefit us. And we'll
Yes.
we'll get into that
Yep.
later at another time,
Yep.
and really kind of deep dive how you guys can help us continue to grow so that we can help you. But again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you all so much. It's great to be back. Gentlemen, if there's anything else you got to sign out with, please do. Otherwise, we will talk to you guys next week.
See you guys.